right, we're on. Our first time getting this live show on, so it took some doing. But
Sir.
again, welcome to a Tribe Called Swish. This is your boy B Moore with Kev from Ohio. So what's going on, fam?
What's up, my brother? What's up, man? I mean, interesting night, right? Interesting night.
Yeah, listen, we pushed the time back a little bit. We're going to go in a little bit earlier because I thought there was going to be a blowout, and the Cavs are showing some heart. So I mean, they 101-97 right now. I mean, they playing ball.
I mean, that home cooking is everything, right? You know what I mean? Funny how some of the role players got to emerge. We're getting a good game out of DeAndre Hunter. He's playing well. The unfortunate thing is that injuries is catching up. You know what I mean? You got Garland's gimpy. You got Donovan. He's gimpy, but they're competing. I wish we was getting a little more out of Mobley.
Yeah. Well, how much does Mobley have? It's like 20, right?
He does, but it's intermittent. It's sporadic. I need more. He's defensive player of the year. Where's the block? You know what I mean? Come on.
Yeah. That's one thing I've noticed in the series that like every, he hasn't had a defensive like moment,
Mm-hmm.
and like Malcolm and Miles Turner have been giving him the business all series.
Mm-hmm. In the way Indiana is built is like Pascal Siakam. His post play is just cooking. It's like barbecue chicken. We don't have a matchup for him. And then you got Miles Turner that can kind of take you on a perimeter. You got Obi Toppin's energy. They're
Mhm.
built and configured in such a way they're just tough to defend. And I think they really highlight where some of our guys aren't just good one-on-one players, like Strus catch and shoot, Merrill catch and shoot. They're statuesque when you need them to create a dribble. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, man. It's like it. I think if Cleveland loses this game, there's gonna be talk if this is the worst number one seed of all time. I mean,
Mm,
like, I hate to be that. I mean, you got Dallas. I mean, that Dallas team that lost to Golden State in the first round, Dirk's team. So you got that team, but the way they ran through the regular season, and I guess this is why we always say the regular season and playoffs are two different brands of basketball.
yeah.
The way they ran through the regular season, and honestly, the same could be said for Boston. The way those two teams ran through the regular season,
Hmm.
you thought there was just no way that it would be remotely close that they would make the Eastern Conference Finals, and both of them are in trouble right now.
Yeah, I mean, the narrative is going to be the narrative, though. I think Donovan, like I said, being nicked up and Garland hurts. I mean, we had a game where we had three starters out. You know what I mean? And we had to play that game. So I think, beyond just being underachieving, I think we got a little bit of an excuse, to an extent. I still think we're getting outplayed. I still feel like we're getting outcoached. I think coach has just been one step ahead, but yet it's funny they can come off the bench with Mathurin, and then you also between Nimbar, and they got sparks off the bench, and we got Ty Jerome, but that's kind of it. We really don't get another spark off the bench, and Strus is, but Strus starts, so it's like we don't get that type of reduction off the bench the way we need it.
That's true. That's true. But listen, I mean, again, one thing that I will probably hesitate to say about them is like why I don't want to say they're the all-time worst number one seed is because
Mm-hmm.
there hasn't really been a game where they've given up,
Right.
and that's the thing. Now they've blown some leads and they've played kind of weirdly down the stretch, but there hasn't been a give up game. Which a lot of these teams like that, there's always that one game.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's funny. Before we started, just talking about, I was saying grit. You gotta have that grit, and I think we're showing that. It's tough, and it's funny. Tyler Halliburton, he's just tough to defend. He's made some really good savvy passes in the paint. The jump shot, though unorthodox, it's effective. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they're just tough to defend.
So we're gonna have to talk about Halliburton because I am not I am not sold on how good he is yet, right?
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. So it's like I know he can ball. I
Hmm.
recognize that. I recognize that he's really good.
Hmm.
I'm just not sure how good. Now in the Eastern Conference, just off the top of my head, there really aren't a lot of top level point guards. So I think he's kind of got it in comparison to the West, where you have your Shays, going crazy and stuff.
Hmm.
Or he doesn't have to go up against that night after night. So I just don't know how good he is. What do you see when you see him play?
That's fair. You know, in a recent interview, he said that, you know, he wanted to show that it wasn't a fluke, their success that they had last year, kind of going into this playoff. And also consider, you know, how long he led the league in assists. So I feel you when you want to kind of see more. You're maybe uncertain about him, but I think he's taking strides, you know, and I think he's emerged as their best player, you know what I mean, right now
Yeah,
on the team. And when he's on the bench, that's when we tend to make our runs. So I think Halliburton is a vital piece to their team, you know. But for you to say that, I think that's fair. I think it's just kind of it's we're gonna see in real time, you know.
right.
How if they get past this series, you know, and it looks like Knicks will maybe eventually win, especially with the Tatum injury, you know. If that matchup happens and they somehow make it to the finals, then what you're asking about it might be answered.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. All
Yeah.
right. So while we wait on this game to kind of get going, what get ended and stuff, we'll keep an eye on it. But
Okay.
let's go with what we're seeing. Speaking of the Celtics, man, this
Yeah.
down 3 games to 1, losing last night. Now you lost Jason Tatum. It's
You know, it's something. It's something. But you know, injuries are a part of the game. But my main thing is that, you know, now with Tatum out, like Jaylen Brown, you signed a 5-year, 285 contract, right?
absolutely,
With you know, with much is given, much is, you know, needed or requested. You know what I mean? I think it's just time for him to emerge. I think this is the window to do it. You know, they got all the other pieces in play. And don't get me wrong, Tatum being there is a big piece, but they have enough to beat the Knicks. And I think Jaylen Brown, he needs to emerge. Otherwise, you know, some of the scrutiny that they were giving Tatum needs to be given to the guy who got Finals MVP.
absolutely. I say this. I feel like every time I watch Jalen Brown play,
Yeah.
I say this. Why can't he dribble? I don't understand why this man can't dribble. I just really don't understand. When I watch him play, he's athletic. He can
Mhm.
shoot. He can do all the things. And just like I was arguing with my nephew about him last week, I'm like, I think he is a number one.
Yeah.
But when you see him play, and you see the fact that he can't dribble left, and
Mhm.
he's a max player, that is so weird to me.
Mhm.
And last night when they needed him,
Mhm.
and keep in mind, it was either the day of press conference or the day before. He was like, nobody get to the hoop like me. And I'm like, you got Tatum, like, but he was talking cash shit, and so you're like, okay, bet. And then when they needed him the last minute and a half, 2 minutes, he's breaking 3 pointers. He's losing the ball because he's trying to go like it's. I don't like. He's the most confusing quote unquote superstar that I can remember where the tools are there. I've seen him do it, but man, when they need him, he seems to get small. So not last year, but this year when they have needed him to be like, okay, be the man.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, I know my own personal like barometer or how I kind of equate, not necessarily a value of a player, but just kind of what I'm looking for is like an attribute chart. I think, you know, Jaylen Brown, he's a great defender, right? Capable scorer. You know, he's crazy like 6'7", 6'8", got a solid frame, you know, and ball handling, you know, if you're gonna give him a letter grade, maybe it is a C. Now he's capable, but sometimes in these weighing moments where the game means most, you can't be shaky. You know, I need you to be certain. You
Right.
know, at times, to your point, he's let the team down. He's had a costly turnover, and that's something that he gotta fix. He gotta
He
fix. But I think they
has to.
have enough on that team, and I think this is his time to emerge. And I think the same scrutiny that was given to Jason Tatum, and
Mhm.
Tatum even admitted to it, like, you know, I wasn't playing well. I think now that same scrutiny must fall on Jaylen Brown if they can't get it done, because I don't think. You know, I still feel like they have the pieces to get it done. But what's your thoughts on Porzingis? What's up with him?
So I think his is all about whatever mysterious virus that he has yet to really kind of fully get over.
Yeah.
Because I've seen him in when he gets in there and he's got kind of his thing going. He's rebounding, he's blocking shots, he's hitting shots.
Yeah.
But I feel like he only has it for like 5 minute bursts, and then after that he's like struggling up and down the floor. And they say there's a lot going on with his respiratory. So I think that's also something that hasn't been talked about enough is how important Porzingis is to the team.
Yeah.
We talk about Tatum and Jalen for great reasons,
Mhm.
but Porzingis was that third piece that they needed. So Porzingis wasn't putting up unicorn numbers that he did when he was in New York, or even honestly, he put up big numbers when he was in Washington with Russ. So because again, they were a terrible team, so he had nothing else to do but put up numbers.
Yeah.
But but he played important minutes, and they don't have that with him right now. So it's like,
Yeah.
he needs that.
Him being a unicorn, a 7-footer that can shoot, a capable ball handler per se when it's requested. But the funny thing is with him is just that's why he's been traded as much as he's been traded. I mean, it's just something that's always, and it's tough. You hate to scrutinize like a Kawhi Leonard or these guys that we know they work hard, but injuries are a part of the game. But it's like when you have that stigma, it's just like it's tough. It's tough, what I mean? So but they really need him. I think for them, when they don't have him, they can be beat. When gave them such a layer of invincibility, but now it's kind of like it's wavering. But they need people to emerge. I think they might even consider playing the other 7-footer a bit more just to kind of keep some size. But we'll see. Cornette, they got to play Cornette.
Right. And they're also missing Hauser too. Hauser's out, who's another shooter. So I mean, so this isn't the same team from last year. They have some health issues. Ooh, that and one. Yep. Ugh. So in Indy's 108 to Cleveland 103 right now, 107. That was a big shot. This isn't the same team that we saw last year, but I think that's the thing is that people underestimate how important health is to these championship runs. Yeah. And we look on paper and we're like, okay, yeah, this should happen. But we saw it with the Golden State runs. We saw it we've seen it with Boston, is that when health becomes a question, anything's possible.
It's something. It changes the whole the pendulum swings, right? And it's like look at that Warrior series, and it's kind of like, man, you love Ant-Man to have it for this moment, right? But not going against Steph just changes everything. When you conversation, if Jimmy Butler is your best player, then you're a championship team, and now that at this moment in time, Jimmy is your best player, y'all going home, and I just don't see it. The pendulum gonna swing. I think it was said Steph will come back maybe by game 6, but it's 3.
You got to make it to game 6. That's a good segue. Hey man, Ant-Man. Look, there has been, we've been around a long time. We've seen a lot of players, but we always know when there's a changing of the guard and something is happening.
Yeah.
Something is happening with Anthony Edwards. At the end of the playoffs, I said, I can't prove it. I don't have any proof, any data, nothing. But there's something about this Wolves team that I believed in. And I felt that if they got past whoever the second round opponent was going to be, and at that time I thought it was going to be Houston, but whoever that second round opponent was going to be, I'm like, they could easily find themselves in the finals. I still feel it's OKC against the world, but there's something special about this Minnesota team. Look, we got Julius Randle playing ball. Man, it's like he's playing ball for real. We got a 20-20 game out of a Gobert in this playoffs. Like these things aren't normal. Right. So this is some things that are happening that just make me feel like the stars might be aligning for them, man.
It could happen. The funny thing, Randall, you look at last 9 games, he has 1 game under 20 points. The Laker playoff, he averaged 20 plus. He gets a lot of knocks, a lot of scrutiny, but he's
real quick. Cleveland is going home.
Yeah, it's over. It's over. So,
right. But go ahead, man.
But Randall, like I said, he gets a lot of notoriety, and I think a lot of Knicks fans wanted him out of there. But I'm just saying, you look at it, look how he's playing. So let's speak up. The masses will condemn a player, but when they emerge and they do it, speak up. Up. That same energy. Look at Russell Westbrook. I know I'm pivoting away, but someone that got a lot of scrutiny. But look how he looks with Denver. Speak up.
I agree, man. And it's the thing when we look at sports, it's all about fit. Yeah. Some players fit differently. And listen, there will never be any Russell Westbrook slander on this station, on this channel, ever. Because Russ is one of my all-time favorites. And I don't care if he throws layups and hits the top of the backboard. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. There'll be no Russ slander. Right. But you're right. It's like fit matters. And Julius Randle fit with them.
Yeah.
And it took them a while to make it happen,
Yeah.
but it did
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
And that was big.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So to your point, I think it's Ant-Man's time, and it's the irony how it's about to happen, but the injuries play a part, and Steph, unfortunately Steph went down, man, but so be it. That's how it goes. I still feel like, Minnesota, the way they're constructed is tough. Nas Reed being a stretch five is tough. Rudy is a capable defender. You know what I mean? I think offensively, if he's just catching lobs and he's just dunking the ball, he should be, dominant. You're not running plays for him. So I think if I'm asking that of the big, that's it. I'm okay with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are a good team. And I shouts to Chris Finch for putting this all together, because I think a lesser coach, Tyrese really he's a front runner, yo. He loves talking his shit when they lead when they win it. But he be quiet. He be quiet when they lose. But but Chris Finch, the fact
Hmm.
he didn't give up on his team, the fact that the front office didn't give up on this team while they were struggling. They were like, they didn't make any big changes. They're like, let's stay the course. We know what we have. And, they had some injuries, like Julius Randle missed a couple months, or like a month or some change.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I've seen, is that just being patient. We know what you have. You know what your challenges are, and you know that you have one of the best players in the league right now. And so you just have to figure out how to make it work.
Absolutely. Yeah, they ooh. These matchups are just going to be everything. Because, you look at a DiVincenzo, you look at a Mike Conley, you look at all the pieces that they have and how they match up, and whether they match up against OKC, or Minnesota. It's going to be some good basketball. But you know what? The other thing that I have a question about is with Minnesota, if Ant-Man, if they find a way to kind of slow him down, are you going to get the offense through Randall?
Absolutely. He's proven it.
Okay.
He's proven he can do it now. I
Yeah.
think that's been a question for him,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think like he's averaging like mid-20s a game. So he's making the big shots. He's hitting open shots. His 3-point shot is falling. So I think now, yeah, you can. And that's the reason why they've been able to be so successful, because Golden State isn't playing mild defense on
Mhm.
Ant. They're throwing double teams, they're throwing bodies at him. They're doing what they're supposed to do. He's just either making a good basketball play, passing the ball, or just hitting tough shots. I
Yeah.
mean, he's hit shots in Draymond's face, and Draymond's doing everything but giving him a hug, and
Yeah.
he's hitting big shots over him. So
Yeah, yeah, it's something, man. But it's tough to watch too, like the passing of the guard. Hopefully we got LeBron for another 2-3 seasons. We don't know. Maybe this could be the last round. We don't know. And then you got KD. While KD is still KD, he's aging. Steph
yeah,
is 30s. All these greats that's kind of on their way out, and this new generation. It's like they're capable and they can play, but it's like it's just different. The nostalgia of some of these guys is just something to see.
yeah, it's that. I feel this is the second time that the first time I can remember this happening is like when the Jordan era ended, and then it was kind of like Shaq was the man, and but it was kind of really Shaq by himself, and then you had AI, he emerged, and then all the other players emerged, and then due to injuries, like Penny got hurt and all these random things, and it was kind of a weird lull, and then all of a sudden that's when you kind of got the LeBron era. D Wade popped up. Kobe became the Kobe we love.
Right.
He went from 8 to 24, and then that's when it was kind of like but it was that weird time. That's what I was trying to tell people earlier in the season. They're like, people aren't watching. It's like, it's because it's this. If you compare this time to that same time, people are just trying to figure out who do they need to follow now.
Yeah.
They know that the people who they followed all this time, they're aging. They might be in out of the lineup because they're hurt,
Yeah.
and they're just trying to find that. And it's a new generation of NBA watchers who are trying to figure out who they want to see, who do they want to watch.
Yeah.
So who are the new stars? And the NBA does such a terrible job of marketing their stars, and it's like, and also I think it's a part of that. A lot of the stars are European now, so this is new. You got Jokic, you got Luka, and I think while Luka kind of embraces the stardom, Jokic is kind of like, I'm cool. I'm glad you guys know me, but I'm cool on that.
Right.
And Ant's one of the few ones who what I love about Ant is that you could tell, like I was telling people in the chat, like you can see that he has media training, but you can see that sometimes he's like, I don't care. He does his own thing. Like in that interview with ESPN last night, he was like, he saw what his friend, he's like, what's up, nephew? And then he went back to the person at ESPN. He was like, yes, they have championship DNA. I'm like, okay. So it was
Switch.
wild to see. Yeah,
So it's funny, man, that you kind of frame it that way, because it's like Ant-Man, he's pulverizing in a way. You know what I mean? You look at guys like Dwayne Wade, Charles Barkley, these guys that are like 6'4", but they play so big, you would think they're bigger than that. And
Yeah.
that's like the perfect, name for him, because it's like he's just so explosive. And I know people were comparing him to like early like 88 MJ, you know what I mean, just because
Yeah.
of field and whatnot. And I can see it with the athleticism, but he's lights out, and it's funny how much the jump shots improved.
Oh yeah.
Him spending time with KD, admittedly so, and him helping, and he said he worked with LeBron, he worked with different shooters, and
Yeah.
it shows, and that's why I think his game is just so unique, But we're gonna see. We
We're gonna
definitely
see. So we got Nuggets and Thunder coming up now. So this series this has kind of given us everything we've needed, right? We got exactly. We got the physical basketball. We've had some light out shooting. We had, but I think people. So I've seen lately. So the newest narrative is that Jokic is struggling and whatever, and yeah, he's and again, we have to be realistic when we're looking at these athletes, man. 82 game season. He's put this team on his back because other people have been in and out of the lineup, and he's been the main constant.
yeah.
82 games, physical brand of basketball. He's the big man. Yeah, he's kind of wearing down, but he's still averaging 20 and like 12, something like that. So is not like he's not looking like Jalen Green, he's putting up, he's just not putting up the numbers that we're used to him putting up.
Yeah, we don't have a short-term memory. He averaged a triple-double.
Right.
You don't average a triple-double and don't have to use it maximum exertion.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's okay for him to show some fatigue. You going up against, look at the matchup. Chet Holmgren he's long, he's wiry. He can stretch the floor. Then they come at you with Hartenstein. He got his hands full. That's why it has to be the maximum team effort. Michael Porter, you can't not show up.
Right.
You expect Jokic to lead in points, lead in assists, lead in rebounds, start the offense. Like, come on. I mean, it got to be by committee. And to beat this OKC team, they got no choice but to, every man up. You know what I mean?
Yep. They just keep throwing fresh bodies at Jokic.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realize that they don't really have a backup center. It's just, Aaron Gordon, if Jokic comes out, Aaron Gordon kind of moves over, and what they're being Peyton, what's his name? Peyton and then so yeah, they don't really have a true backup center.
Right. DeAndre Jordan.
Well,
and so he's a long way from Lob City.
Long way.
They give you 5-6 minutes per se, and it's just trip how he looks so much older, but maybe it's just the diminishing athleticism, and all it comes down to. But that he's not a true backup at this point. He's more Udonis Haslem. You know what I mean?
He's a body. He like if you need to give him a blow for, just as you said, 5 minutes max, because that offense is going to grind to a halt if he's when Jokic is not in there. But yeah, I mean, look, Jokic, he's averaging 25, 12, and 8. I mean, that's if people like he's struggling. Yeah, man. Yeah, he's only shooting 46%, but dude, that he's putting up numbers. I mean, it's like, calm down, like, but this is going to be a slugfest. I think it comes down to secondary players. I think it's J-Dub, Jamal Murray. I think as either of those players go, that's how the series is going to go. I think, as we talked about before, I think Russ is going to be big. Russ has got to get back to last series Russ, less turnovers. His shot selection has always been erratic. So I don't mean it's saying that a better shot selection for Russ is just not really a good complaint, because he's, it is what it is. That's who Russ is. That's who he will be in. It is what it is. But he's got to be able to hit those bad shots. That's all.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Is that I think who's been kind of quiet is Dort. Dort's been kind of quiet with OKC. He's out there, a capable defender, but he's not getting it done. He needs to emerge. So it's funny. At times I'll kind of pinpoint guys that make noise in a regular season, but playoff basketball, you can't just sit there and just watch. I that same energy you had in the regular season, they'll need it now. But this is definitely a dogfight.
It
This is
is.
a dogfight. Good matchup. And it's funny, shows you how fast OKC has come along, and
Mhm.
how serious of a threat they truly are. And Denver, like I said, that championship DNA, it shows up. I think if you had to look at the word like grit or just wherewithal, Aaron Gordon, that's what he is. That's him.
Yeah,
So
it's like I think OKC what they have done. I mean, it wasn't really that long ago when they had Paul George and he was an MVP candidate. And
right,
from that year after that, they tore it down.
yeah,
And now look at them. The past 2 years in one seat. I mean, it really wasn't that long ago when you just really look at it. It wasn't that long ago where we're like, oh, Paul George, Russ, and yes, and AJ and Carmelo, but they're like, okay. And then Presley was like, nah, this not gonna work.
yeah.
And yeah. And people were like, oh, he gave up Paul George for a Shea and a bunch of draft picks. How stupid. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so, but to your point, within that 2 year span, as to what just happened now in the draft, what's your
Yeah.
thoughts on the draft?
So yeah, but hey, you are getting good at this, man. Look at you. Look at you. You are getting good at this. So the draft is this. I'll say let's start with this. It was something. So the Mavericks getting the number one pick is hilarious, right? Because I think it's the funniest thing in the world. Because look, man, they got rid of one white boy, get another white boy coming in, and all it's up for Nico is just to draft Cooper Flag. That's all he has to do. And look, I am not completely sold on Cooper Flag, right? Like,
Me neither.
so I've been trying to see what the experts, some of my friends seeing him, and I don't think he's this second coming. Like, I think he's a typical white Duke player. Like,
Mhm.
I don't see, like, even when they were saying like, oh, in the Olympic trials and like, oh, he made that play over Ant. I'm like, yeah, that was a good play, but it's not. To me, he's not this for athletic. He's not fast. I've seen like he doesn't have quickness, so I'm just like, I don't get it. And look, I'm not perfect and I'm not the super expert, but I know talent and I can kind of see how that equates to the next level. And he's going to be a good player, but is he? I think he's a starter, but he's not that guy that I see that's jumping off the screen. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm missing something. Like, I'm the insane one.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I totally agree. I think, if you Google or YouTube Cooper Flag Olympic highlights, because so much notoriety is given to how well he played. It's like a 2 minute clip. But why
Yeah,
is it a 2 minute clip? Because there's not a lot of highlights. You look at some of the things like, if he's a 6'10" guy and he's coming off the wing for a dunk, I expect him to dunk it.
yeah,
I'm not blown away by, okay, he dunked it. So you see the highlight of him shooting the three ball over Ant Davis. Cool. Okay. Nice shot. You know what I mean? But that doesn't make, he doesn't have like, he's not oozing talent. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to minimize him. I just don't see him as special. We're looking at Wembanyama. Yeah. This 7'5", 7'6" guy, I get it. I can see why all of the craziness around him was there. But Cooper Flag, I think he's a really good player. I think, he fit well in that Dallas lineup with Kyrie, Clay. I think he fits right in maybe at that 3 spot, but I just don't see special. I compare him to Keith Van Horn. Are they different?
that might be a good comparison, man. That might be a good one.
More athletic than Keith Van Horn, certainly, but that style of play. Give me another prototype player like him that's dominated in the league.
All right, so I'm gonna go back to the last 10 number one picks, and you kind of help me with this. If when you think about him or what you've seen of him, does
Okay.
he feel like he could be better than these players? All right, 2014 was Andrew Wiggins.
Wow. And winning, I think that might be Cooper Flagg's ceiling. But you know what? But Andrew Wiggins, different situation goes back to our previous conversation. When he came to Golden State, he became a reliable shooter, a
Right.
good wing, and they won with Andrew Wiggins. So I don't want to minimize him. I think Cooper Flagg, if he could play at that Andrew Wiggins level, he's a good player at that point.
Yeah.
And Andrew Wiggins is good, but I think he's in that same vein. Potentially.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you. All right. Cat was 2015.
Big Cat,
Yeah.
I think he doesn't give me that Big Cat type of talent. Like Big Cat again is a 7-footer who can stretch the court.
Right.
That's unique. That type of stuff is rare.
Mhm.
I don't think Cooper Flag hasn't shown me a rarity. He played well in the tournament. They didn't win a championship. If I'm gonna be impressed, I'm impressed with Carmelo Anthony as a freshman, but they won the title.
Exactly.
I respect Cooper Flag. I just don't see special.
All right. Ben Simmons. Yeah, he got Ben Simmons. I mean, he got Ben. Like, look, there are circumstances why with Ben, but we can only judge Ben from what he's done, from what he's produced.
Sure.
First 2 seasons of Ben Simmons, there might be, but it's his career has kind of extended long enough where he's not going to get that back. So, yeah.
I agree with you. Two things to consider. Ben Simmons got Rookie of the Year. Though he played a high out, he got Rookie of the Year. In addition to, he went through a lot of mental anguish with the Brooklyn Nets. But
He did.
on his Clippers team, when he got in, I think most gave him a layer of respect. Because he looked like a capable defender, didn't really look nervous, still wasn't looking for his offense, but you
And
didn't
that's
mind.
big.
So, and that's just a fresh scenery has definitely made a difference. But I think Cooper Flag again. Ben Simmons got Rookie of the Year. So
Yeah.
that first, then talk to me.
All right. Okay. Markel Fultz. Okay, we can agree. He's better than Markel Fultz. I think we can do safe to say he's better than Markel Fultz. All right. DeAndre Ayton.
I think Aiden is something. What's your thought?
And so Ayton was solid in Phoenix. I think he's been in no man's land in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
So I also think he got an unfair I think he got an unfair deal in Phoenix because he wasn't ready to deal with Chris Paul, and you got to be a special kind of person to deal with Chris Paul because he's just kind of he's not a likable person on the floor. Everyone loves him off the court, but on the court, it's like, so I don't think he has the talent, but I don't think when they were winning, he couldn't be the 8 that he could be because dealing with Chris Paul is just, you're 22, 23. You got this little man barking on you every day. You got to be a special type of person. I mean, Blake Griffin said it. Almost all CP3 people who play with him say that he can grill your nerves after a while.
Absolutely. So CP3, my favorite point guard of all time.
Yeah.
Point guard, but I definitely get it. I'm sure he does. He is a tyrant, but he knows the game, and you can learn. Remember during his time with OKC playing with Shy, they was running, and they were a lot from him. So it depends on kind of who you ask. It's always going to vary on the person. But Shy said he was someone he learned a lot from,
right?
Different than someone else's, So, but I get it. What I mean?
So I think I think Ayton. Well, I think Wiggins had a higher ceiling than Ayton. So I think he might be better than Ayton.
Okay.
So next one, 2019, his Duke brother Zion.
Ooh, wow. Zion is something, man. I think it's just so many layered things with him. You got a lack of discipline. Just injury, the injury bug, the talent, because when he's out there, he's an absolute force, double. He's going to definitely give you that. And he's so rare, he's so powerful and he's so athletic, but yet, sometimes the best ability is availability, and that's just not, that doesn't, he's the antithesis of someone that's healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. And I think that's a good comparison to him and Cooper is the fact that when you saw Zion, you saw something special. You saw a number 1 pick. Yeah. And I think it was hard for people could say even when he was at Duke, oh, what about his shot? what position he's going to play. He's a tweener. You can say those things, but what you weren't going to say is that he wasn't out of this world talented.
Yeah.
It was just like, look, we don't know where we're going to put him on the floor, but he's going to be on the floor. And I
Yeah.
think I feel like people are forcing themselves with Cooper Flag with saying that because I think if they were in the same draft, there's no way Cooper Flag is going ahead of Zion.
No.
So right, exactly, because no matter how they said that he's standing out, he's still So like I don't. From what we've seen of Zion, I don't think Zion's hit his ceiling yet. So I don't think even from what we've seen of Zion that Cooper Flag is even in they're on different planets right now.
I don't forecast or foresee him being that effective offensively as like a Zion Williams. Like Zion, again, as I said, is a 2010 guy. He can give you that. He has such touch as a lefty. You look at a Zach Randolph, having work and being effective. And it's like I thought coming into the league, Randall was like the prototype of Zach Randall. He's a lefty post player, but Randall is more athletic. Then you bring Zion's more athletic than Randall. So it's kind of like, but just those lefty that have touch and good feet work, footwork, they're just different, and I think, but I think Cooper, his ceiling definitely is not higher than a Zion, but I don't foresee his offense being as fluid as Zion's.
I agree. All right, 2020 is Anthony Edwards. So I think I'm going to agree with no.
Sure.
Yeah, no. All right. 2021, Cade.
Oh, Cunningham. What's your thought?
So I'm gonna say no. Because
Right.
what I'm seeing from Cade right now,
Yeah.
like for me, when I look at the all NBA team,
Yeah.
and now after this playoff run, I may regret this, but I had him in the guard position. I had him over Brunson solely the fact that Cade is more of a stat filler than Brunson. Brunson might give you 40, but might have 5 assists. Cade going to give you 26, 10, and like 3 or 4 boards.
Yeah.
And Brunson doesn't really do that. So that's why, like, when I look at the best point guards in the league, I got Cade like number 1 right now. Well,
yeah, Cade is tough.
well, 3 behind Shane Luka, but Luka's always in and out. But yeah.
I mean, Cade, good guard. Plays both sides of the ball. Detroit hadn't been in the playoffs since it's probably been about 8-9 years. It's been a long time. So I think of him leading the ship, being their best player. I think Cade is tough. Again, Cooper Flag isn't that. And I think clearly Cade.
Okay, all right. Let's see what we got. 2022, Paolo Banchero.
Ooh, Paolo is tough. What a force! What a force! And he has such good size, man. It's like I think you can see him being dominant for years to come. And I don't even know what his ceiling is, because he's compared to he can handle the ball. But a good prototype for him, Blake Griffin. I think type of just that body type that has a handle, that's uber athletic. I think Paolo's a dog.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah. So we have 1 more year, and I think it'll be obvious. He's not gonna get this one, but looks like Wiggins may be his ceiling. But 2023 was Victor.
I had to retract the statement. I felt like I mean, him and Bobo, what's the difference? Bobo just don't get the minutes. No, totally different. Wembanyama's skill set, man, is just through the roof, and it's scary how good he can be. Hopefully things work out with the blood clots. So
yeah.
See.
Yeah. So I mean, and Stephen Castle was this year, and I think it's too early to see. He had a great rookie campaign. So which actually with that could transfer us to the Giannis sweepstakes because I think San Antonio is going to be in the mix.
Yeah, I've heard that. That's compelling. I've also, the blog sites has him interested in playing with the Lakers too. Imagine LeBron and Greek. What kind
I don't know how to make the. So the thing is this: the Lakers. I know. Listen, we talk about this. The league always wants to make the Lakers a news story. I don't know how they make it work financially because they're cap strapped, and number 2, I don't know if they somehow make that happen. They are not going to have a team behind them.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think they can't afford to be the people
Mhm.
to make it happen,
Yeah.
or the cap space. So
Mhm.
Giannis's, to me, best fit are where teams that he just kind of come in and kind of join the party and kind of elevate it. And so it's like San Antonio will be tough because I think there may be a spacing issue. Him, Victor, it's a lot of big guys. Pause, just all over the court, right?
Yeah.
Steven Caps is a decent 3-point shooter. So is De'Aaron Fox, but none of them are really like what you would call like knockdown shooters. So that may be an issue.
Yeah.
Um, I like him with Houston. I
Hmm.
think I think him and Houston could really turn the West upside down. Uh,
Would you have to give up Sing was it the big man Singon? Would you have to
no,
give
I
up
think I think Shingun is untouchable. I think they'll keep him. I think what they would do, they would have to pack probably. They had what I forgot what pick did they have? They had like I think like it was like a 17th pick. They
okay.
have to package that pick, probably Van Vliet, maybe Jalen, probably Van Vliet, Jabari, some more picks in the future because I think Houston has another. I forgot who other picks they. I think they have some more Phoenix picks. So Van Vliet probably someone from Houston, Jabari Junior. Yeah, that's probably how they would have to package it because they've got the cap space. They've got a bunch of picks. They're
Hmm.
possible. I know technically OKC could do it, but
Hmm.
I think something have to really go wrong in this playoff series for them to kind of blow it up. I do think, like I said before, I think they're going to be in the KD sweepstakes. So I think KD's price is going to be low enough that they
Okay.
can kind of make that happen. Um, so, and I think teams like there's like Miami can make a play for him.
Hmm.
I think Orlando has the assets and the space. The Knicks would have to kind of blow up their depth to do it, and so that may be possible. But the things with his contract and the fact that they only really have him guaranteed for 2 years are going to make a lot of teams kind of think twice about him. Because I think when people have been talking about this, you have to understand since people keep thinking about how it was a Rudy Gobert. Like Rudy Gobert got 5 firsts. Yeah, but that was before the new CBA.
Yeah.
So people GMs are thinking differently. So and plus it's depending on the team. Do they want to pay that second apron luxury tax? So there's all these things to consider. Like it's I would rather see Giannis go to a young team and
Yeah.
get them over the hump. Like I personally would like to see him go to San Antonio. I think would be fun. I wouldn't mind if Detroit could figure out a way to make that happen. I
Mm.
think that would be fun. I just think for him to go someplace like those places,
Hmm.
it can make the league better. And I think he can still be in championship contention without sending him to a big market team, blowing the team up, and then we hear all year how this team is underachieving because they're like, we got Giannis and nobody else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get you. I get you. Going back to that potential Houston trade, I'm not sure because if you bring in a Van Lee, remember you still got Damian Lillard there, so I don't know that you can
Yeah. Good point.
trade package. But I like the other fits. I think San Antonio, that's compelling. But is there, you know, can two bigs in the front court work? Sure. What I mean, Victor, because Victor can shoot. But that's tough. That's just tough. I don't know if that style of play is going to just make them unbeatable. I don't know. But I like that. I would love to see what a Golden State team would look like. Just to have him swing the pendulum that way. But what Greek does is definitely going to change the landscape, and that's I mean I'm very intrigued by that, and I think he should get up out of there because the Doc Rivers experiment is over. Doc has historically, been on the other end of 3-1 leads and just lose. Got one championship, and I think Doc is a good coach, but sometimes we overvalue things, and I think that was a veteran Boston team, and he
Yeah.
has been in a championship since.
Yeah.
But he's given a lot of notoriety. He's given a lot of control with minimal results. So I think Giannis should get up out of there. Let's blow that up.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I would like him to stay.
Mm-hmm.
But when I listen to people who understand the cap better than I do, and some of the experts of like what Milwaukee's up against, you got Dame making 50 million, who's not going to play next year.
Wow.
He's making 50 million. Like that's like, and
Yeah.
then so you don't have picks for the next 2 years because of the Dame Lillard trade. So not only is he blowing up your cap, he's blowing up your future.
Yeah.
So and again, not listen, he blew his Achilles. They couldn't afford seeing that.
Yeah.
Then it's like
Yeah.
after like Giannis, you expect like Kyle Kuzma to take that next step. Like you look at that roster, and there's nobody who you can look at and like, oh, they can step up and they can no, like there is like they've got a bunch after Dame and Giannis. It's a bunch of role players. It's not and there's no one there who's like a young role player who like, oh, they can make the next step. It's just role players who are old. Like
Right.
Bobby Portis, that's the best you're going to get out of it. Brooke Lopez, he's seen his better days. Like there's nobody. I mean, they got the young kid, AJ Green, who it's weird having a white kid named AJ Green because I think of the Bengals receiver AJ Green, who's from Charleston. I'm like, this is weird, but
Right.
that's who they have. So it's like that team is done. So like I don't want him to leave, but he's got to go because I don't want to see another KG spent too long in Minnesota, another Dame who spent too long in Portland. Luckily Giannis got his one chip, but he's too talented to kind of leave the game with just one.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's gonna be a spicy summer, and also when that free agency hits and begin. I'm just eager. I think Bradley Beal getting out of Phoenix is still compelling. He can land. He needs some fresh air, as KG would say. He needs some fresh air because I think he's such a good piece on a lot of teams. But he can't be. I think him and Devin Booker, because they do the same thing. And when you Devin at the PG, he couldn't really facilitate to that clip, so it's like they just crap. So they got to blow that up. But this is going to be an interesting off season, and I think Giannis is out of there.
Yeah, when it comes to Beal, and then we'll wrap this up. When it comes to Beal, I just don't know where he wants to go because unfortunately he's one of the like what him and LeBron, the only ones who have non-trade clauses now. Like where does he want to go that can afford him? And honestly, like no team wants to take on that contract. I mean, that contract is just like listen, when he signed that contract, we were like, yo, congratulations.
Right.
250 million. That is amazing.
Yeah.
But you are never going to win.
Right. Right.
No, no matter where listen, you won at life, no doubt. But no matter where they try to ship you off to, you're not going to get a championship. That contract is too much.
The career earnings is there. You look at Carmelo, Gilbert Arenas, so many players that they got the bag, but essentially no opportunity to win it. And I think James Harden, to be on that list is something. You want to win, but sometimes it's better to stick it out. Ask Tariq Hill, you know what I mean? So it's just one of them things, but we'll see.
We'll see. All right, man. Again, this was fun. Sorry about your Cavs. Probably tomorrow I'll be having the same.
We'll be back.
But yeah, man, this is fun. It's fun always. This is B More, Cam from Ohio. Tribe Called Swish. Holla at y'all later. Peace.